All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a massive financial scandal brewing at Ghana's electricity company, the ECG. It's a really big story, full of huge sums of public money, some very intense parliamentary hearings, and one crucial question. When things go wrong, who's held accountable? So let's start with the number that kicked this whole thing off. Wow. Just look at that number. 180 million Ghanaian cedis. That's the figure right at the heart of this entire controversy. It's a staggering amount of public money, and the way it was handled is exactly why the ECG is in so much hot water right now.
So what exactly is this 180 million cedis? Well, it's not just a case of spending too much. The key word here is unapproved. This means officials at the ECG went ahead and spent all this public money without getting the okay, the required sign-off from their own board. In any organization, public or private, that is a gigantic red flag.
And that, of course, leads us to the two big questions, right? First, how on earth does a spend this massive happen without anyone approving it? And maybe even more important, who's going to step in and actually hold them responsible for it? Well, let's find out. The answer to that last question brings a very powerful parliamentary group into our story. Meet the Public Accounts Committee, or PAC. You can think of them as the official watchdog, the group whose entire job is to keep an eye on exactly this kind of thing.
So, the PAC's mission? It's pretty straightforward but absolutely critical. They exercise oversight and they ensure accountability. They are the investigators in this story, the ones digging through all the reports to make sure the public's money is being protected.
Now, this whole investigation didn't just come out of the blue. The problem was actually flagged through all the proper channels. It came up during a routine review of the Auditor General's report. So, on paper, this is exactly how the system is supposed to work. Checks and balances, catching potential issues. But here's where it gets interesting. As the PAC started to dig a little deeper, they realized that the 180 million cedis, well, that was just the tip of the iceberg. This unapproved spending was actually part of a much, much bigger picture of financial problems.
And here's what they found. Two major issues. First, you've got the unapproved spending we've been talking about, the 180 million. But then they uncovered something else. 35 million cedis in withholding taxes that were mishandled. Now, that's money that should have gone to the government. And this was so serious that they've actually referred former managers for prosecution over it.
And believe me, these discoveries did not happen quietly behind closed doors. The reports describe the PAC hearings as having heated moments and clashes. So you can just imagine, this was not some polite chat over spreadsheets. It was a high-stakes, tense confrontation over the handling of millions and millions in public funds. Finding the problem is one thing, but what happens next? That's what truly matters when it comes to accountability. And the PAC, well, they didn't just write up a report and call it a day. No, they demanded real action.
And here are those consequences, laid out step by step. First, a direct order to prosecute the officials involved in that huge overspending. Second, a formal referral to the Attorney General for that separate issue of the withholding taxes. This really shows that the committee is serious and is using its power to push for actual legal consequences.
As you can imagine, once this news got out of Parliament, it just exploded. It sparked a major public outcry. Suddenly, everyday citizens were putting intense pressure on the ECG, demanding answers, demanding transparency about how their money was being spent.
Now, this might all seem like some distant, bureaucratic problem, but its impact is very, very real, and it affects a lot of people. So let's just zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, at what's really at stake here.
See, at its heart, this isn't just about one company's budget. It's about good governance, and it's about public trust. When public money is mismanaged like this, it just erodes people's faith in our institutions. And here's the kicker. There's a real fear that the cost of all this financial waste could eventually be passed down to you, the consumer, through higher electricity bills. That's why this matters to every single person.
Which brings us to our final, really critical question. With the Public Accounts Committee taking such a strong stance, and with the public demanding answers, could this be a real turning point? Is this the moment where accountability in Ghana's public institutions stops being the exception and starts becoming the rule? I guess only time will tell.